When we're participating in RFPs, one of the things that we're often finding is that the organizations who are hosting those RFPs are often just choosing the lowest bidder. To them, it all comes down to what it looks like it costs on paper. And ultimately, this usually ends up being a short-term cost. Companies are under enormous economic pressure these days, and with the tariffs and everything else going on, and they're often looking at, what appears to be the quickest savings for them. But one of the questions that these companies need to be asking themselves is, these vendors that are coming in, cutting the rates on their quotes or coming in at rock bottom prices, how are they quoting these jobs so cheaply? It ultimately comes down to a few factors. One is they're bringing in super depreciated equipment, equipment that's antiquated, it's old, it's prone to breakdown. Ultimately, this will result in more downtime of that equipment, and more safety issues, and ultimately more long-term costs for the organization. Another way that companies are trying to save money is they're often bringing in underpaid drivers. Often this means that the drivers that they bring in have less experience. They may not have a CDL in the US, or in Canada, it's a AZ or an AZ license, they call it. They also often have higher turnover rate. If they're paying the drivers less, the drivers aren't sticking around as long, which means that the drivers aren't developing a working knowledge of that yard. This leads to more accidents, more damages, and loss of efficiency. And over time, that's going to drive your costs in the yard and your long-term costs up. Another way that we see companies often trying to save money is they don't offer or bring in any kind of YMS or yard management system. Without that platform, the customer doesn't really have any visibility or access to data. And without that data, especially kind of long-term data, there's no ability to identify trends and drive optimization, which is a key factor in long-term savings. We believe in doing things the right way, even if that's not always the cheapest option. So a few things that we'll always make sure of when we go into a yard to take things over is, firstly, that we're fully compliant with all Canadian employment standards, or if it's in the US labor regulations. But even beyond compliance, what's critical for us is that our customers see us as more than a vendor. So we want to ensure that we're an outcome partner and that we're identifying long-term savings for the customer, which we might be more expensive up front, but in the long term, we want to ensure that we're saving customers dollars.